Unlike most Alaks, the first contact with people occurred in Tajai's holy halls and old-fashioned libraries in the former metropolitan mine. Nuu's captain called me on the bridge of the stars looking for me, accused of ignoring his maintenance obligations, with an extraordinary attitude and unwavering appearance. Apparently, the meaningless sensor readings were the only evidence of my alleged violation. Voyager's weapons station operators are busy in the vast oval bridge space. Even the normally rambunctious comms fell silent when I came into view, and they followed me as I approached Captain Noah, who was standing next to the raised captain's seat. Nuu's skin glowed and radiated authority. His posture was firm, and his gaze was unwavering, even in silence. He commanded respect, and the bridge reflected his efficient, orderly demeanor. But as I approached him, I remained calm and felt a subtle dread of his occasional, sometimes justified outbursts. Confident in my adherence to protocol, blaming the data analysis team before no one's inevitable reprimand was tempting, but I held firm under his scrutiny. Explain this. Noah boomed, a holographic display crackling to life before him. The screen is flooded with a chaotic jumble of data that is overwhelming at first glance, the centerpiece of which is a reconstructed image, a perfectly polished metal sphere whose reflective surface emits an unsettling aura, as if it had been forged from a single block. According to reports, the unidentified object appeared shortly before I left work. While I was in blissful ignorance, the remaining data provided little clarity. The magnetic and gravity readings indicated that the orb materialized and disappeared, without a trace, leaving no warp drive or signature of hyperspace travel. The orb appeared and disappeared. Unsuspectingly, I recited and collected the data as best I could, and then a voice came out in frustration. Tell me something. I don't know. I explained the lack of a warp or hyperspace signature. Ignoring the curious looks of the crew, I scanned the data again, looking for something to support. In my innocence, a glimmer of hope appeared from the gravity readings. Sensors are working, Captain. This section shows the force of gravity, which coincides with the appearance of a sphere. The sensor works fine. How could I be so stupid as to say those words without realizing their full meaning? The voice of no one shattered my innocence, so your proposal was prepared, undisclosed, and immediately received, more likely than a mistake. The challenge lies in the balance. Panic grew when I felt countless eye weights. My gaze returned to the data and looked at the mistakes, but it didn't offer salvation. Just as despair threatened my reason, a dazzling purple light flash filled the bridge when my eyesight cleared vision, not as opposed to something I ever met in front of us. The bipedal creature, taller than Captain Noor, stood imposingly between us with smooth, dark gray appearance without any visible joints, like an exoskeleton or perhaps a sophisticated suit. Before we fully understand it, it turns its head to reveal two pained eyes and a wet, moving face. Unexpected visitors, it spoke in our own language, greeting beautiful insectoid beings from this amazing galaxy, and the creature jumped. We are aware of your names, both for yourself and your star's home. But introductions are a favorite custom of us humans, and we shouldn't skip them. We come here with peace, seek knowledge, and offer the same in return. So please don't bring weapons, or we'll be forced to leave and come back waiting for mutual acceptance. Unlike most Iraq, whose human relations are a one-sided exploration, my encounter with these interstellar beings was more than just learning from them. Instead, it was a mutual exchange of knowledge. We discussed the makeup of our universe and each shared our perspective on its governing rules. This exchange only took place after Captain Neo's hostile reaction to the human surprise appearance on the bridge. The situation escalated and forced the humans to retreat under the threat of gunfire. Captain Noah, desperate to return home as soon as possible, ordered an emergency light. Speed jumps, pushing the Starfinder beyond the limits of safety, limited by my convulsive dorm anxiety, beckoned to me. Every physics lesson I had ever heard echoed in my mind, and suddenly a blinding purple light flooded my cabin. I was startled, and I turned to find the intruder staring at me through those disturbing pairs of wet eyes. Forget about tight spaces. Forget about shielding loads at maximum capacity. Forget the impossible speeds at which we travel through space. People just ignore all logic. We have been monitoring your ship for several days. He spoke directly to me, and fear made me shudder, eyes widening as he frantically searched for a weapon to throw at the mysterious creature. No harm intended. His voice was rousing, a stark contrast to the chaos within me. We seek only knowledge. How could he expect peace from something people did? Well, after the first interpretation, He continued to move and was silent so that my panic could be replaced with curiosity. Just as I would come back, it was unthinkable. It looks like my time is short. He repeated himself before he disappeared. But don't be afraid. I will return. The hum builds to a pulse with a purple glow, then fades away completely. He left, and I stood there staring blankly at the empty room, thinking I would reach out and carefully explore the room. As my guides walk around my cabin, they look for any signs of delusion or hallucination, and if I report this encounter to Captain No, the bridge erupts into chaotic memories and time becomes eternity. Dow believes in the report. Captain Theo then senses the futility of his efforts and stubbornly dismisses the bridge incident as a hoax, telling the crew to forget it. Suddenly, the blinding purple light comes on again this time, and I avoid eye contact and spit out my question: what does such a powerful being gain by interacting with us? Think of me as David, smiling and showing his teeth. My translator had trouble with the name. It seems that our interspecies communication is not perfect. But he didn't directly answer my question, saying that I was wrong. My question irritated him, and David's page went silent again. I thought we answered your question somewhere. We are fascinated by your technology, your shields, and your FTL drives. We've been chasing this secret for centuries, but even our most advanced devices can't crack the code. Building ships like you, people from another galaxy interested in our technology, gave me a wave of disbelief. It felt like these powerful beings were playing with me. Anger simmered inside me, forcing me to fall into a long silence, all to avoid blurting out anything that might endanger my species. It seems easy to judge my past. At the time, I lacked the knowledge I have now, and these seemingly similar beings were not silly, but the fear of self-protection maintained my tongue control to avoid what I said to cause our destruction. But why do I build such a ship like that? How do we like us? David shook his head. Now I understand that the gesture, because I quit there, is a small interstellar travel point. He explained that the universe is just going to send you back home minutes later with no trace of your journey. Even the objects we carry will ignite a spark of understanding within me. As David disappeared back into the familiar purple light, he returned to his home system as if his visit to our ship had never happened. This is a profound moment. However, David's absence proved far more significant than his singular presence. In my cabin, a storm of thoughts was brewing in my mind. Maybe it was just my advanced age or an inflated sense of self-importance, but at that critical period, the seeds of our civilization's recent advances had been sown. Humility is ignored. After a moment, it was in solitary confinement that the truth was revealed to me. Humans might be willing to trade their secrets of interstellar travel for conventional faster-than-light travel. The fear of the crew offered me an opportunity to end the enslavement of Captain New's men, and driven by anxiety, I laid the foundations of a plan that was then full of uncertainty and what-ifs. I stole myself away from the challenges ahead. I was filled with curiosity and anticipation as I waited for David to return. Purple lights flashed in the cabin again. This time I didn't waste time, adjusted my vision, and got out. Tell me all about how your species traveled the galaxy, David, and here's my long talk about mutual knowledge sharing. All your bullshit is like buzzkill. Don't you have a limited amount of time here? And I can't wait to find out the true cost of interstellar travel. No, it wasn't exactly that he was on drugs. It's just a pain in the ass. You would understand that. Let me demonstrate with a tap on the head. David disappeared in a flash, only to reappear later with a familiar flash of light in hand and a peculiar transparent bottle. Nothing like an intergalactic water bottle, and he claimed his vice popped. He began to loudly drink the water, effectively destroying any remaining mysterious air. As the esophagus could cross the galaxy, elevated levels and thirsty drove from the galaxy and removed the fluid from his body. Don't worry, David said the crumpled bottle was thrown on the floor like a thrown-in-the-room suit. It'll be waiting for me back in my own galaxy when I poof. I ignored his flippant response. My scientific mind is burning for answers, all right? David, I have enough pressure to break the water. Tell me, can you describe your interstellar journey in detail? He leaned back with a hint of amusement in his voice. While I can explain the basic idea, it's the modern hardware that makes it all work. This is part of the underlying technology exchange, where you won't say I flash here, and he reveals the secrets of this advanced technology. Theology didn't seem to care. We just built it ourselves. And if I had known what I know now, I probably would have left a permanent dent in the wall from my heavy hands. How do you cover such long distances so quickly? I suppressed my excitement and simply said, David broke his fingers. We shove only so much energy into atomic space until the entire universe throws a tantrum and physics goes on vacation. My jaw drops on vacation at the laws of physics. Did this guy break the laws of physics by skipping all of his basic space science classes? I thought that laws existed because they could not be broken. Otherwise, it means they were never really laws. Well, when you push your limits, things go wrong. David said that the universe has no other limits. Wouldn't concentrating energy into a small nozzle create a black hole? David laughed, sounding suspiciously like an engine running its mouth. Oh, we thought so too. Back then, black holes appeared. Isn't it such a big deal that you just cram a lot of energy into a super small space and voila, instant black hole? He easily said that this was my first exposure to the human tendency to downplay complex scientific concepts that are not as interesting as they think they are. But at the time I was too naive to recognize the red flags. But why would you need black for him to go to another galaxy? I countered, skeptical that the creep of mass and energy is the same. You can put a lot of resources into a small space and thrive. You have nothing but a normal black hole. David waved with his contempt black hole in his hand and did it there. But if you continue to push more and more energy into a slightly fine space, and if you do it fast enough, other things will happen. There is something else. I replied curiously. Nonetheless, he laughed and discovered a series of teeth that looked suspicious, designed to make new particularly stubborn room rocks. Imagine a point in the room where the reality fabric was separated. We call it a strange area that thinks of a black hole like a cosmic pimple, and the strange area is full of blistered tear fabric. Therefore, it continues to appear and revive. Over time, self-confidence, causes, and consequences will come back to you. Remember that I proved that the wound left scars, a purple light swallow, David Halla, and then went to the crushed water bottle with him? What was the scar on the universe? These questions and a dozen more swirled through my mind. Thankfully, David was not a one-time visitor for the remainder of the return journey as the Starseeker trudged back to Almec space with a desperate captain. At the wheel, David made several return trips. Each time he answered a few questions, then disappeared with another sip from his seemingly endless bottles of intergalactic water, which also disappeared with him with each visit. A seed of hope blossomed in me, for this strange human David held the key to sharing knowledge that could advance the entire mock civilization, but convincing my people would not be easy. This meant bypassing Captain Theo, the bewildered leader, who dismissed the whole incident as a hallucination. However, I have an advantage. When David made his first public appearance, I was the person closest to him. I knew this fact would be my ticket to a higher authority. It's time to gamble on the potential of this interstellar counter and risk your life for the future of the Almecs, who, unlike most Almecs, form friendships with humans. Only after enduring many cycles of awkward interactions, mine blossoming surprisingly quickly while many remain uneasy about people, watery eyes, and casual demeanor, did I learn to tolerate David's goofiness, and he in turn respected my seriousness from the start. Perhaps it was this unlikely camaraderie that drove the progress of our species during my lifetime. If Captain Noah had his way, the war wouldn't happen, as some have tried to claim. Instead, humans could simply focus on more compatible species and leave our little galaxy unencumbered by their attention. The metal door that separated Captain Theo and me from the governor's office was clearly visible, its intricate carvings and brilliant seals shining. The authority of elected leaders excludes creatures who speak our language. Now consider ignoring your oversight. Captain Theo said, breaking our tense silence. It was the first time he acknowledged me since banishing me to my quarters. I kept my mouth shut, maybe to cheer for the captain of the Who. I agreed in hindsight that I understood his struggle to try to explain the inexplicable, but youth clouded my judgment and prevented me from seeing his burden. And while I was still resentful of being accused of dereliction of duty, the door hissed open to reveal that the sleek metal walls of the office became the governor's. Aval sits on a lonely table, and the holographic display is buzzing. If that doesn't warrant abandoning your mission and returning home, I don't know what Governor Captain Theo boomed in his voice, laced with forced authority. We have verified data to support it. Our ideas. Technician. The veins here demonstrate the functionality of the sensor. The creature's presence is so disturbing that it is rumored to speak our language, and the crew's eyes are flashing. With me, he spoke directly to me. The report mentions fully functional sensors. Can you confirm this? My stomach clenched, and I looked at Keo, confirming his awareness of the irony of the situation. Yes, Governor, I said the sensors were recently replaced and tested under my supervision. There was no way they malfunctioned. Relief flickered across Neo's face as a silent pressure released the captain, and the governor continued, his voice slow and contemplative. Assuming the report is accurate, what action should be taken? Do you recommend preventing similar cases? Nay, stand up. Every captain and crewman of the fleet should be authorized to engage in SATA and raise a shield against any vague suspicion of the unusual that assails me. It wasn't just about protecting my friendship with David, a man who could travel between stars and species. Communication happens on the bridge, where we provide knowledge, and the solution is to shoot first and ask questions. What if that person gets sick of being shot with something? If next time it wasn't a talking being but a bomb that appeared from the void, the shield wouldn't be able to protect us, and the lie was already taking hold in me. The pressure was building behind my survival power. Finally, I cried out in my voice, "He's lying." Surprisingly, the creature was stable, called itself human, claimed to be from another galaxy, and proposed a knowledge exchange. The air crackled with excitement as both Governor Avil and Captain Theo glared at me. At that moment, I felt like I was thrown into a void. Despite the lack of offices on our planet, any fear of windows attracts the attention of young people. Governor Captain Dodd, who is negative, has not seen the real horror of the room. The fight that accuses your bosses is a serious violation. Governor Al said in Weka, when a being offers knowledge from another galaxy, betraying even a modicum of care is troubling. Of much greater concern is the crew, paralyzed by fear. It wasn't the courage of youth, the fuel, or my next move, but the little device gripped in my manipulators. The governor wasn't a bad driver, I admitted to him. I might have done. The same child is still being forced to act like a frightened child. The human, I blurted, determined to be heard, offered us intergalactic travel technology in exchange for our shields and warp drives. The pressure in the room intensified, muddling my words. He said black holes are like pimples on human skin in the weird zone, like a scar that leaves. My fumbled explanation earned me bewildered stares, more befitting a visit from a medical doctor than a disciplinary correction. It was then that I knew I needed an expert with trembling manipulators to activate the device, and its weight vanished as a sliver of purple light flickered between my appendages. My heart pounded against my ribs in fear of David's absence, but a blinding purple flash banished that fear. David greets the beautiful insect creatures of this magical galaxy in the same voice as when he entered. We know your sign for you and your star houses. However, introductions are a favorite custom of humans. Let's not miss it, Captain. He smiled and said, "You look a lot like a cockroach, as I saw in the picture. Is that your mother?" He waved the picture for emphasis. Needless to say, the ensuing conversation in the governor's office was not a friendly exchange. However, it is undeniable that all those who saw David were oriented towards technical communication. The impact of this meeting was enormous. During the year, the leaders of both races made a pact, and I earned the coveted position of helping to build a machine that would build another machine that would create the components that would eventually give my species a taste of intergalactic travel throughout their adolescence. And so one thing turned into a frenzy of construction, an end product that, while the workers' work paled in comparison to the human-made prototypes, for the era had ushered in a period of prosperity not seen for centuries. I spent nights trying to decipher the bold shortcuts and unexamined assumptions inherent in human design. That's when I truly understood. Why, for them, the laws of physics were more like well-suggested.